Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, as always, to the Gotham Chess Slow Run. This is episode number 26. In case you've missed 25 previous intros, this is a series where I play on an authorized account on chess.com, starting at 400, and now reaching close to 1300. I am 100-0 in a shocking turn of events. Some of the games have been extremely close. I have taught you many different openings. I've taught you how to come back from certain deficits, convert winning positions, and so on and so forth. I am recording this in March of 2026, but as always, if you would like to mark your calendars for the release of my next book for the intermediate level and beyond, October the 6th, 2026, How to Win a Chess Next Level. A lot of the things are covered in that book, and especially in this rating range right now. Also, there is a spreadsheet in the description for a list of all the openings that I've played and links to those games if you would like to follow along. All right, here we go. Here we go with the 26th episode. We are 1,250. And we will try to get to 1,300. If not today, then in the next episode. I have played many different openings. I've played e4, I've played d4. I am sticking to these more than anything else. Some of you have requested that I play the English opening. I can, although at this level, I do not recommend it. I think it is a little bit too mysterious. I think it is far easier to play e4 and d4. My opponent plays e6. At a master level, Black is trying to play the Queen's Gambit declined. That's what they are trying to do. There are very limited options here to not end up in a pure Queen's Gambit declined. Okay, this is obviously just awful. I have no idea what this is, unless my opponent plays the move e4 on the next move. Now, e4, d5 on the next move. I skipped the step. I'm actually going to prevent that with the move e4. So now my opponent cannot play the building block opening that they are trying to play. Remember that when the opponent puts pawns, or you put pawns on the 6th rank or the 3rd rank, you are building up the other center pawns. Bishop to b4 is a move. We could just take the entire center now. There is nothing wrong with this. We don't particularly care about having our pawn structure doubled. And now I will even go as far as to say we have a very strong advantage from the early going. Trading a bishop for a knight that early in the game is not very good. And if Black were to trade the dark squared bishop, Black needs to put a lot of pawns on the dark squares. They are not doing that, right? We are just developing some pieces, and also we have a space advantage. So right now we have better pieces. We have the bishop pair. We have more active pieces, and we have more space. That is what we have. So how do you capitalize on such a position, on a position where you have a significant space advantage and better pieces? Right now you are faced with this moment right here. Like, do we take once? Do we take 2 times? Which one do we take with if we take once? To be honest with you, here you have several choices. I like undoubling your pawn. Your pawn, it's a double pawn. Kind of like undoubling it. However, the side lacking space, which in this case is Black, kind of wants to undouble the pawns. Like they want to undouble because they want to open up lines for their pieces. C takes d5 is reasonable. I kind of like just pushing this pawn. I like pushing this pawn. It restricts the pieces. This bishop remains blocked. And I also open up this direct line of attack. Now, by the way, we might already qualify for a Greek gift sacrifice here. Several criteria have to be met in order to get the Greek gift sacrifice. The first one is h7 needs to be only protected by a king. The second one is that the knight needs to go to g5 and ideally be protected. Then you open up the queen. And the last and kind of like fourth bonus of all of that is one of the 2 diagonal pieces on the other side cannot defend that square. Now, I will get into all of that in a moment. I think this move might win us the game. It's insane that on the 9th move, we already have a tactic like this, but we qualify because our opponent did not play the best way in the opening. Now, running forward to g6 is the best way to counter. That move played in 2.9 seconds gets mated in 2. That is absolutely inexcusable at the intermediate level. You cannot assume your opponents are stupid. Queen h5, queen h7, it's just mate. I mean, I don't know what my opponent was trying to do there. Like 2 seconds spent with 9 minutes on the clock is unforgivable. I mean, you have to look at how the opponent can put you in danger. You have to consider it. There are other pieces on the other side. And my opponent just resigns. Now, I won in 10 moves. I was absolutely ruthless, but really what I am trying to do here is show you how to punish poor opening play, unprincipled opening play, and how quickly the opponent's position can turn fatal. And also show you how to have these little alerts in your brain, picking up tactical nuances, picking up patterns, because that is how you're going to improve your chess to the next level, which is why I made the next, the book title, Next Level. Now, look. My opponent, look, this was not an English opening. Like, this was a bad opening. We can qualify this as the English opening, but it was a bad opening. It wasn't a particularly effective opening. But if you're going to play e6, you need to play logical building block moves. You need to fight for the center. You can't just, I don't know what a6 is. I mean, this is no good, right? But then my opponent went here, and look, you're already going to see how... actually, let me just set the, this to a different engine because Torch recently has been less laggy. Okay, so it's 0.3, right? And now it's one. Look at this. In this position, White has a slight advantage because White starts first and has more space. And this move doubles the evaluation in White's favor. You trade off your only bishop. It is way too early to make such a trade. And you have not played in a way where trading a dark squared bishop would be logical. Now, allow me to just customize this position very slightly. Let's say the position is bishop d3, knight c6. Let's say I don't play it accurately, and black plays e5. This would still be a much better way to play if you traded off your dark squared bishop, and if White plays inaccurately, look how quickly White's advantage goes away. That is because the person with the bishops wants the bishops to have open space, open lines, open diagonals, not be walled in. Here, none of that exists, and very quickly, my opponent just gets a bad position. The move d5, however, is while looking very natural, is nearly losing. And that's kind of crazy. Already, there are so many dangers here for black. The pattern is the knight is not on its traditional square. To be honest with you, even if the knight was here, it would be under massive attack. For instance, let me just reposition black's position to look, something like this. This is still terrible. In fact, it's even worse because after the move e5, the knight has to move completely, and then you still Greek gift. You still do the Greek gift sacrifice. So this is bad, but it would be even worse if it was on f6 because it would be a target for my pawn. Now, if my opponent in this position offers me this trade, you got to ask yourself, should you take or not? The second best move, I'm looking at the engine, is in fact to take like this because you undouble your pawns. But the problem is you're opening up the light squared bishop, and that is what I'm trying to draw your attention to. Now, look at the evaluation if you take again. 0.9, right? Knight takes d5, and then if you're too careful, it's equal. I mean, you just allowed the opponent to get back into the game. You didn't castle. You played a little bit carelessly, right? And you got yourself in a bad position. This move is beautiful because it cuts space, blocks out this bishop, and opens up a direct line over here. And after d takes c4, yes, the Greek gift sacrifice is there. Look at that. Plus 5.3. The natural move here would be bishop takes. And this is nice. This, White will maintain an advantage here. White will try to castle. But in general, I do need you to think about, the attack on the king. Black castled the king. Chess is all about getting to the king. The best move here for black would be immediately fighting back against the center. If black plays slowly, like knight c6, the best move for white, bishop d3. I'm not even joking. Position is so good, you don't even have to castle. And then if h6 is played, you can actually play queen e2, queen e4, or you can play bishop back and do something like this. Of course, if you just castled, you would have an advantage forever, but then you would need to use this space advantage and the bishop pair to create an attack. And yeah, this just wins. Now, what I wanted to show you about one of the ways that you can stop a Greek gift sacrifice is sometimes you get to a position like this, and one of these two pieces can land there. Like, imagine the bishop could land on the opposite side and defend the checkmate square. That would be an issue. So you sometimes are left with these moves, like with the bishop or the queen, that counter you, but That doesn't exist in this position. The best way would have been to play king to g6. Now, if king to g6 is played, which does happen quite often, king h6 would run into the bishop, and that would be double check, and then you would win the queen, or you could even play queen g4 like this, which apparently is just mate soon. When the king comes out, you can do two things. The most common is to bring the queen to set up a discovered attack against the king. The second most powerful is actually just using your h-pawn. You have enough time here that this is just absolutely brutal. Double check, h4, h5, and as long as they don't have a way to fight back against you, you're just gonna win. It's like, it's a really nice tactical motif, and it appears in many positions when the opponent plays unprincipled chess, and that's what happens. I'm gonna play a second English, because why not? That last one wasn't much of an English, and the main idea of the English opening is to defend the d5 square, fight for the d5 square, and then play g3 and bishop g2, and things like that. Now, we see again, the opponent is trying to set up a direct attack on the center of the board. Now, if you just absent-mindedly... What are these people doing? I don't know. If you just absent-mindedly do like this, black, of course, should have just played d5. They should have taken the center immediately. Now they can't do that. Okay, so my opponent just mimicked me and now is doing their own thing. No problem. There's several approaches here with white. If you want to maintain this, you can play e3, knight e2, followed by d4, or you can just develop the knight and play for d4. I like doing it like this, and you can start with this setup before this setup, whatever. And after castling, you try to play for d4, because what that does is it opens up your position, opens up your dark squared bishop, opens up this bishop, and everybody's happy. You can even play d4 now, but let's take on in the center first. You don't have to do this. We just talked about opening up the position for the opponent. We've just helped them. The problem is if you don't, they can push in forward. And the more space that they take, the more they dislodge your position. But both are just cosmetic choices. And now we play our kind of, English style move d4. Okay, c4 is instructive. Now here, I will apply the next level of opening principles. Of course, you haven't developed your bishop yet. So just an easy move like bishop f4 makes sense. But you will notice that we have a huge lead in development, and our opponent is kind of like blocking their own position, which means opening the center must be a good move. If they are 2 to 3 moves away from castling, 1, 2, 3, now you strike. And sometimes you don't even need to take back the pawn. Sometimes you can even go target a different piece. Oh, g5 is an atrocious move. Atrocious. Not understanding the situation at all. But I get it. I mean, my opponent's trying to go bishop g7 and castles. I can say it's atrocious because I'm 2,900, 3,000 blitz. If you're playing at 1,200, you might get distracted by this move. You might even try to sacrifice a piece. To be honest with you, you might even be able to get away with it. But like, let's just take in the center. And if black doesn't get the king castled, yeah, this is looking very dangerous now. For black, I already see a tactic, right? Of course, I'm looking at rook e1, but I just see if I bring this queen forward, my bishop is right here. So I see that tactic. I don't think we need to overcomplicate anything. We're going to take, of course, rook e1 check always is appetizing, but knight takes pawn here, opens up an attack on the queen. This queen is also unable to capture the knight. So at a minimum, we are winning a pawn here. And at maximum, we might win a queen for 2 pieces. We really might just get a decisive advantage here. And this was all because of unprincipled opening play. My opponent did not develop in a great way and left their king in the center. Not about castling the king and leaving it out, but actually leaving it in the center. Okay, so now this is under attack. Of course, I can move it. I can also maybe go knight e4. I can also give a check. All these moves look good. Bishop to e4 is also a reasonable move, but it kind of blocks everything. Bishop h3 is very curious because it uses the hanging knight and skewers the bishop and the queen. Bishop h3 is fascinating. Fascinating move. Very well could be the strongest. I think it's probably above the pay grade here. I think most people would just sort of play rook e1 and try to figure things out. I mean, look, rook e1 cannot be bad, although it does help the opponent develop a little bit, right? And now they are looking to castle. But what if I play queen e2 targeting that bishop? I don't actually see how simple it is to defend things there. Plus, I'm getting another piece in the game. You could sack a rook, but I don't think it's the most effective move. I don't see any follow-up. Knight to c6, defending this, runs into bishop takes, a simple removing the defender tactic. And if my opponent castles, I will take this. Oh, we just talked about this. the rare and strange bishop takes c6 check, a move that you almost would never play in a position like this, but it's a removing the defender tactic. And now black is in a lot of trouble. And by a lot of trouble, I mean completely lost. This was a 15-move game for us just because the opponent left the king in the center and because we played a pretty nice and straightforward opening. I don't like to win games this fast, but sometimes you guys do tell me to be ruthless. And now, of course, we are just bulldozing the position. Now we have a moment here. What do? Our bishop is under attack and our knight is under attack. So we'll probably have to lose one of them. Or not. Because, I've just realized. So, of course, I'm looking at some sort of like, well, if I'm going to lose my knight, I might as well just sacrifice it. Knight takes f7. But what's worth more than a bishop and a knight? A queen or a king. And so you have a move like queen e5 check, but that would just result in a trade and the loss of a piece. You can play rook e5. That's a very creative move. Rook e5 is very interesting. Or you can move your bishop, which is hanging, to e4, where defended by the hanging knight, right, you create a counterattack, save one of your pieces, and the knight now moves back as well. Of course, here, you could also just sacrifice the knight, win a pawn, get the bishop out of the way, and have an extra bishop. That would also be totally winning. But this is definitely the best move. It's a very nice move. Queen a5, actually. Very nice idea. Attacking the rook. So look, here's how chess works, right? My opponent just resigned. Because I think they realized that they blundered. So what I was going to show you here is, hey, we are going to save the bishop, and our knight's hanging, right? So this is hanging. That's the first thing you need to see. Why did they go here? That's hanging. That's the first thing I need you to see in this position. Now, a lot of you would have gone, hey, I wanted to save my knight anyway, and I can move it back and defend the rook. That's actually the first move that I saw. Like within half a second, my brain was like, well, I wanted to go here anyway, and it protects. But let's not forget, we still have to look at checks, captures, and attacks before we do anything else. And we have a queen and a knight converging on the f7 square, which the queen on f5 used to protect. It's the only reason we didn't take that pawn and didn't even consider that move is because the queen used to be defending that square. And by moving to a5, although creating a strong threat against our rook, this just made in one. Just made in one. Now, the English opening is one where if the opponent immediately goes into the center with e6 and d5, or e6 and d5, you have to decide, are you going to play the queen's gambit or not? This is actually the question. Like, when I play the English opening with white, and I see an opponent going like this, you could just play the queen's gambit declined. The benefit of c4 is that it avoids a lot of random variations. Like, if you're going to be a d4 player, right, and your opponent's going to play something like this, and you want to play the queen's gambit, but you want to avoid, like, the Benko gambit, for example, or you want to avoid certain openings. You don't like specific openings, like, for example, the Grunfeld defense. That is why you would play c4, because c4 sidesteps certain things. It forces the opponent to commit something very early. Like, the opponent struggles to get a Grunfeld on the board because you can play this move order, and now there is no d5. And so black has to be aware of that if black is a Grunfeld player. The drawback, the one major drawback of c4, is that the reverse Sicilian defense kind of stops you from playing the move d4. And that you would have to learn some stuff here, but you can, of course, always play g3, bishop g2. Maybe you really like these positions. At the master level, this position has been studied so much, and yeah, e5 is, definitely the best move. But it leads to some very complicated and interesting games. The best line is c6, try to go d5, but at amateur level, I think most people will not know this. I think most people would not know that c4, e5, g3, c6 is the way to go. The way my opponent played in this game, g3 is not the most accurate move. Yeah, look, black is actually better because of my move order. If black had played the move d5, I'm actually not going to stop the move d4. If I play d4 now, then black will end up getting an attack against my queen. That is not what I want. So actually, against this move order, the best line for white is knight f3, and after d5, to go for d4 immediately. So you have to kind of adjust your strategy. You can't just autopilot the opening every single time. There's a person on the other side. One of my favorite sayings in How to Win at Chess Next Level is, okay, you're getting to the level in chess where you have to assume the opponent is not an idiot. There's no like, I'm going to play all of my opening moves and they're just going to let me. No, that's not how that works. It's not how that works. In this particular case, we are seeing opponents that are playing very strange, and by spending too much time in the opening, look, every move my evaluation grew. 0.5, 0.7, 1.2. Like, why knight e7? Why not where the knight is supposed to go, right? And then attacking the center, but you're attacking the center when there is no business attacking the center. And look at this, it's already plus 2.3. And after this move, striking the center, it's plus 3. And then after this move, well, it's plus 4. And then after this move, it's plus 5. And then after this move, it's plus 6. And yeah, rook e1, queen e2. And we attacked because they left the king in the center. The most important thing I want you to get out of this is that in this position, you have to be thinking about the move e4. You have to look at this position. You got to go from the next level. If you're 800 in this position, you go bishop f4, obviously. I get it. You haven't developed all your pieces. Of course, bishop f4 is totally reasonable. But as you're an intermediate and advanced player, you got to go, hey, I developed everything right. They're going to castle in like 3 moves. I think I got to attack the center. It's just got to be the right move, because even if we just trade like this, it's going to take black a while. Like, black might go here. Now I play rook e1, bishop e7. I don't know what's brewing there, but I feel like there is something. And there is. There's almost always a tactic. Like, g4 is, the knight goes here, you take, and now you don't let black castle. You target the bishop. If they go knight c6, you can even play d5, which is an amazing move. If they take, you have knight e5, knight d4 ideas, and you have tactics all over the board. The knight and this. And you might not see all of this because you're not high-rated enough yet, but we got to start developing the instincts. That is by far the most important thing, okay? So, there you go. Let's keep rolling along. We tried 2 Englishes. I've played Caro-Kann and Scandinavian more than I've played anything else. Some of you have been asking for a modern defense. I will play a modern, although, again, not an opening I recommend at this level, just simply because you do tend to lack a bit of space. Okay, but e5, right, e5 can't be good. That's unprincipled. You have to be developing your knights and your bishops. Now I just attack the center. I mean, you've overextended on the 3rd move already. You can take here with black, but then the knight will come. You can develop your knight. You can also pin, because that would destabilize the center a bit. But there can't be anything wrong with developing the knight, fighting against both of these pawns. Like, we are just straight up threatening to take the pawn here. This move kind of changes things a bit because we are pinned, and so the bishop is now kind of stopping our attack, but okay. 2 bishops interacting via a knight. Well, I mean, this is just, we will happily take, right? Why would we damage our pawn structure? Now, my opponent, I expect, yeah, will kind of keep coming forward. But we are already in a position to start chopping the center. Look, because I have a long-range piece. So if you take with the knight, yeah, today's opponents are not playing very principled opening in the opening. Look, bishop is here, right? You might be tempted to just take the bishop. I don't hate that move, because if you take the bishop and they take, you damage their right to castle. But I want you to go to the next level with your thinking. Like, that's a totally reasonable move. I don't hate this move at all, but do we have to trade? Can't we just develop the knight in the way and castle our king? Like, we put the bishop there for a reason. We have been given a bishop pair from the chess gods very early in this game. Now we have a very rich, very interesting position. Wow, the opponent just gives away the bishop. Oh my goodness. I'm going to take with the bishop, although actually taking with the pawn I think is totally reasonable. When you damage your structure like this, it comes from the Tartakau or Caro-Kann, which is one of the main openings for black, I think, for intermediate level. And then we would push this pawn forward. I'm going to go here. I think white is going to play this move and try to get my bishop, or not. And so now let's kind of take a look at how to use the bishop pair. We have some issues. We are not really going to be opening up our diagonals that easily. So what we need to do is we need to get the queen out, the rook's in, and then we have to use our E and C pawns to chip away at the center. Any move is okay here. Queen d6, queen d5. I kind of like queen d5. I kind of like queen d6. It's very tough to say which one is better. I'm going to go here because if they ever move the knight, it's just mate. And our queen is not really a target. Plus, the queen has some horizontal mobility here. and then I'm going to put some rooks in the center. This bishop would actually do a much better job tucked away, and then our c-pawn could be attacking the center. The more we chip away at the pawns, the more powerful our bishops are going to become. Okay, look, I don't know. I think bringing a rook to the center is almost always a good move, and then this rook will go here. I chose that because it felt right. Of course, I could have put that rook behind, but then where would this one have gone, right? Not sure. A4 is a move, just trying to take some space. So let's begin this approach of trying to break apart the center of the board. I want to play c5, so I'm going to play b6, bishop b7, and c5. That's my plan, to try to chip away at my opponent's center. Again, if you've never seen a plan like this before, to put the bishops back and then chip away at the middle, you will be very confused. This is a big overextension for white. It leaves white with a very tender c-pawn, and if that c-pawn ever, falls like victim to anything, there's going to be some serious problems there. I kind of like how my opponent's playing this, I have to say. If I take, they're going to bring in their rook. I don't want that. Can I still play c5? I think so. I think I can. But yeah, I don't mind this, really. I think my opponent has played this in quite a clever way. But let's go c5. This has always been our plan. This was always the idea. Now, I think the best line is taking here first, yes. And then after take and take, you can maybe even pin. Will they spot that? Do I even have to... Do I have to take this pawn? Or can I take over here first? See, most people would just snap take, take, take. But what I notice is that after this sequence, they can come in and pin. Are they gonna see that? I don't know. I can probably throw in this move, but let's see. Let's test my opponent's vision. So pawn takes, pawn takes. In general, you shouldn't take away from the center. That opens up too many things. Will they find rook a5? Rook a5 is a very high-level move. I would then need to defend my pawn, probably. I'll be very impressed. Okay, they don't spot it. Rook a5 would have been very clever. Now, immediately, everything opens up in this position. So the first thing I see is, of course, queen c5. But look at how powerful my bishops just got. Look at this. Look at this position. Suddenly, the whole position comes alive the second that the pawns fall. And I just chipped away, and now there's going to be huge problems for white. Bishop d2, of course, just threatens to win the game. I'm threatening the rook. Rook a2, I just take. I'm not even sure what white can play here. White is just guaranteed to lose material. Maybe rook b1. Rook b1 is the move, maybe, to try to just make sure my queen can't move. Rook b1's very clever. I'll see if my opponent spots that. You kind of come to that move because you're like, I'm going to lose this, or rook a7. That move, I can just take the rook. If I take this, they will move that rook out of the way. But if I take the rook, I win material. If they take with the queen, I take the knight. If they take like this, I should probably take with the bishop because that attacks the knight. And when the knight moves, chess is a very simple game. Simplify immediately. Simplify. You have a totally winning position here because you have two rooks versus rook and knight. And the way you win this is you swarm in with your rooks. First, I attack this pawn. White will play king g2. But the idea is to attack the pawn not from the front where the rook can protect, but from behind. And now this is a really big problem. Nice move by white. So first I will protect my pawn. Notice how the knight is trapped, by the way. Very instructive here, how the knight has absolutely no moves. This shows why a knight cannot possibly be on the outskirts of the board like this. And my opponent is giving away the pawn to try to activate the knight. I'm not even going to let that happen. I'm going to be absolutely ruthless here. And now I predict rook b1, rook takes, knight b3, rook b6. Okay, this is also possible. Of course, we simplify. And this is now relatively straightforward. The knight will come out. We will... Oh, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. The knight is in a box. Now it's absolutely game over. Totally ruthless. For the king to walk over here, we're just going to take a bunch of pawns. We're going to walk in over here, eat everything. Very instructive way. You can just completely strand the knight. We don't even have to win it. We just don't need it to get back into the game. And that's it. Our pawn majority here wins the game for us. We're going to bring our king up. I don't really care. You can move this pawn, anything. But it's over. It's absolutely over. Maybe e5 was a little bit more accurate to prevent the pawns from moving forward like this. You know, and then we're going to bring the pawns like this. And then we can literally, and I do mean literally, walk the king over here and take the knight. So look, I'm going to set up like this. White is going to play h4. I'm going to play h5. And then I'm going to run my king that way. Of course, I can also win the game on this side of the board, but it is very instructive. White doesn't have enough time. They're just going to lose all the pawns over here. So I'm going to go king e7, h4, h5. I can have also just played h5. Yeah, totally miserable position. The king is going to come. White's going to realize what's happening, try to panic and get over there, but it's just, yeah, it's just crazy. h5. And no moves for white at all. Just absolutely no moves. Really, really ruthless endgame. Shows you the power of these pieces. You know? And now here you have to be a touch careful. Because if you take and they take you, you're up a pawn, but yeah, you're probably still winning. But it would be unnecessarily complicated. But you know, just to show how to win this position, a pawn endgame is nearly always winning if you have more pawns. If it's just kings and pawns, almost always the side with more pawns wins. In this case, my king is totally dominated. The reason I went for this is because I have one resource. If we get into a king race, I will probably lose, but it's going to be very close. King here, king here, king here, king here, king here, king here. Take, take, take. Very close. What makes this possible is I have a pawn break. This will win me the game because I will strike this pawn. And it's very important I have this move. If there was a pawn here for white, white is just going to win. And now I'm always threatening this. The king can run back, but as it runs back, my king comes closer. And as I said, you can be patient in pawn endgames. You don't have to rush. You can be patient. Look, my king can walk in and white will get to defend, but they will run out of moves. And you have to be patient in king and pawn endgames. Notice I didn't touch my pawns. I didn't touch them. I just ran back with my king because white has to permanently defend against these two pawns. If I rushed, I might have blundered a draw, actually. If I rushed in with the pawn. So you have to make sure your pawns control here. And now white is out of moves. White cannot make a move here to save their pawns. It's a Zugzwang. German word. G4 is probably also winning now, because after this trade, I win the last pawn, and then I'm in a winning king and pawn position. Just don't take like this, because if you take like this pawn runs away. So take like this is now easy peasy. This is actually winning even if this pawn doesn't exist. Of course, you can take both pawns. And the king comes to f3, and this pawn will promote. I am now doing with this king what is called shouldering. Look, I'm shouldering the king away, not letting him get close. Just don't stalemate here. No stalemate. King will run out. And if you ever need a refresher for by far the fastest checkmate for a king and a queen, knight opposition, put the queen a knight's distance away, and then copycat. Copycat until the king gets to the last row. So the king, anywhere it moves, once it gets to the last rank, you freeze the king there. Copycat. King goes down one, you go down one. King goes diagonally, you go diagonally. King goes down, you do this. King goes that way, you go that way. One square at a time. I don't know what my opponent is thinking about here, but maybe they're just tilted. I mean, maybe they think I'm going to run out. Maybe they think they're going to stall, and then I'll forget that it's my move. Again, copycat. This is by far the easiest method. And when I see the king go to the last rank of the board, I immediately look for the move that freezes the king there, and then you bring your king. The king walks down like this. Credit to my opponent. I don't think resigning is correct. I think you should play until mate is a certainty. This is the most accurate, and now anywhere the king moves, this is a mate. That was an interesting game. That was a very interesting game. And you saw in that game how to use your pieces effectively and how to not rush in the opening. I played a modern defense. My opponent played pretty reasonably. You know, I thought I was playing smart moves. E4 is not the most principled. The most principled, of course, is to develop. Some people even like to bring a third pawn, and that third pawn generates a powerful attack, like with F4 and E5 and that type of stuff. But Yes, all of this is very normal. Notice I just blocked the pin, didn't do anything crazy. D5 here would have been an interesting move attacking my bishop. I would have went passive, or I would have prevented my opponent from castling. And then if knight c3, I would have just sat on this diagonal. That could have been very curious, preventing the opponent from moving their king out of the middle. But after this, you know, I just took. I also could have tried to develop my knight this way, but that's a little bit ugly. The computer also here likes queen d7 and long castle. Very interesting move. The computer here wants me to take. And after d takes, here's the line that it provides. It wants to trade queens, take the knight, which is a tough move to play, damage the structure, long castle would check, and after knight to h6, it evaluates the position as minus 1.6. It thinks that black is nearly decisively winning, purely because of how weak these pawns are. So the knight comes to f5 with ideas like knight d4 check, and it's very difficult for white, excuse me, to defend everything. Rook d4, rook d8, rook f4. This is not very applicable to intermediate or advanced level play. I think the way we played it was very, very reasonable, even though it wasn't the top move of the engine. But I know. There's some people who watch these videos and they're really chess purists. And if I was playing a title player, I would have gone for bishop takes, because if knight takes, there's this pawn. And if this, yes, I do think this clearance of the position benefits black tremendously. But I thought it was much more instructive that you learn how to use your bishops. It is an absurd decision to take this knight. The position goes from 0.2 to a near 1 point turnaround. In fact, the top move of the computer here is not bishop takes. Wow, look at this. This is fascinating. Pawn takes. That is so tough to understand. The point is, I think you stop knight e5, you remove your own pawn weakness, and now you have two completely open lines to operate with, your queen and your rooks. I think that's why pawn takes f6, tough to understand why that is the best move. This is the second best move. I brought my queen out. You know, I centralized my rook here. Yeah, wow. The computer here likes g5, g4, trying to remove the knight as a defender. That's tough to fully get. I struck in the center, and I thought I was being quite instructive here, showing you how to play this. Had my opponent found rook a5, this would have been very, very, very keen awareness of the positioning of all of the pieces, but they did not find it. They did not find it, and after this, minus 1.1, look at this, -2, 1 pawn capture opens the floodgates, and it's -3.5. Incredible. Just like mind-blowing how powerful bishops are. One trade opens up the D line and this diagonal, and the game ends on the spot. Crazy. The best move here was the very instructive move, not autopiloting this, but rather taking this pawn to prevent rook a5. Now, this looks scary because this pawn can get here, but what's amazing is this pawn is not promoting ever. And after this, if anybody's promoting, it's me, because I'm threatening the knight. The knight moves. You know, my pawn's got excellent support, whereas this pawn doesn't really have a hope to promote in the future. And that is really instructive. That after pawn takes b6, I did say I do think the best move is pawn takes b4. I think most people would take on b6 here because, like, how can you possibly allow a pawn to go to a7? But things are not always as they seem. The pawn on a7 cannot promote because 4 of your pieces defend the promotion square, and you need to stop rook a5. And that's what chess is all about, stopping the idea of rook a5. You will notice constantly in my lines, I am hesitating to make a move because I, as a master, see the best response for the opponent. I see it because you have to see both sides of the game. And I'm sometimes not wanting to enter a position for the opponent that's good for them. But that's part of the slow run, right? I can't always play like these mercurial captures and like break all the principles and then have to explain myself. But hopefully it's all clear. I hope you're enjoying. I know we only played 3 games today, but I think these were a very instructive 40 minutes. So I will pause there, and we will continue our climb in episode 27. As always, if you enjoy the content, I do have an educational platform, Chessly. You can try it for free. No card is required, and my book comes out in 7 months. Hopefully you are still in the rating range, and yeah, that's all. Get out of here.